Hi, Bill Lanning back on Interesting Individuals, and we're going to take a look at a positive look at the 1970s and check out some of the fads, talk about TV shows, movies, music, and kicking it off with me now is Jim Arnold. And boy, that's your passport into the building right there.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud of this.
Well, Jim, I'm going to start out with a tidbit that I didn't realize until after I booked you to be on the show. We first go back to the 1970s, and I'll refresh you. Remember, you came to a class at Elston High School that I was in. You gave a lecture about the types of crimes you're handling with the sheriff's department. And as everyone was saying their goodbyes, I knew that my father knew your father, so I mentioned that to you. It turned out you knew my father as well.
Your father was he worked playground. Your father was a playground supervisor at Pullman Field, and he taught me how to keep score in a baseball book.
I'll be darned.
And that was long before your time.
Yeah, I was.
So I was familiar with the Jim Landing, and years before Bill Landing ever came.
Well, all right, now you're stuck with another Landing.
That's okay. That's okay.
Jim, the 1970s, what are some of the things that you recollect?
You know, the 1970s, I had just gotten out of the Air Force in 1967, joined the LaPorte County Sheriff's Office, and also was enrolled as a full-time student at Valparaiso University, raising a family. So I was very busy. But what I remember about the 70s was we came out of service as Vietnam was still going full blast. Yeah. And there was a lot of turmoil in our country, a lot of demonstrations taking place against the Vietnam War. Of course, I served during Vietnam, and that was very, very prevalent throughout America, throughout the United States, and worldwide, I should say, about the Vietnam War. Now, you come back to Michigan City, we had our things like that as well, but what I remember about Michigan City was that Michigan City was a blue-collar, hard-working community, and you could always tell because there were always people talking about what was happening in Michigan City development, where the Bloxham factory was, and we had Harborside Homes, which used to be known as the Patch, I might add, years ago. That was leveled in the 70s. They put the Harborside Homes in there. Bloxham was gone. We started noticing a lot of development, a lot of places being torn down, a lot of things, a lot of redevelopment coming up out of Michigan City. And my father, who was a sheriff up until 1970, became a state representative, and then in 1979, my father became mayor of Michigan City. So I was very proud of his step from the county level to the state level back to the city level. So it was very, very instrumental in a lot of development that took place in Michigan City. And we just had a great fan base, great fan base. There were, the problems. All the minorities and got along. We had no problems. A lot of the problems we shared that later on as we developed in Michigan City and developed throughout our country. But Michigan City was a proud community.
Yeah. Quickly, you have 3 children who were born in the 70s?
I had 3 children born in the 70s. My second daughter, my oldest daughter, was born in the 60s down in Louisiana, and she's married to the mayor of LaPorte, now Tom Dermody. My second daughter, Jamie, was born in 1970 and still lives here in LaPorte, I should say. Now, my daughter, Janelle, was born in 1973, and she lives in LaPorte. And then my son was born in 1977, and he's currently a sergeant on the LaPorte County Sheriff's Office.
Outstanding.
So,
all right.
I'm very proud. I always tell when I go to the different events, and especially when I was downstate, I'm from Michigan City, Indiana, and I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of the things we've done here. I'm proud of the community, and I'm proud that I've had the opportunity to represent the people in various elected positions.
All right, Jim, as always, I'm glad you took a few minutes to change. I'll have to keep in touch, and I'll have to look for that.
Well, Bill, I want to tell you, and to your viewers out there, you've always been so welcoming to Jim Arnold and the Arnold family. Thank you for always having us invited to your programs. And Andy, thank you as well. I don't get to see you like I used to, but it's always a pleasure.
Referring to longtime cameraman technician.
Yeah, I know. He's behind the scenes, folks, but believe me, he's there and he's working. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
All right, Jim, take care. We'll see you again sometime.
Thank you, Bill.
Back again as we take a look on interesting individuals here on the positives from the decade of the 1970s. Donna Cavanaugh is joining me on the show. We haven't been on camera in a while. You're smart, that's why.
No, but we've had some fun times on camera, that's for sure,
Yeah.
Bill.
Okay, well, Donna, let's hear what you have to look back on in the 70s.
Well, thank you for inviting me, a great producer here in Michigan City, Bill Landon. All right, so I have some connections because I spent some time in Hollywood in the 70s. And the first TV show I did was one called Having Babies. And we filmed it out in San Fernando Valley. And I met this man, Sid Caesar, right here. And he started out doing your show of shows. Maybe a lot of your grandparents will remember that. Anyway, he was on the set. We were filming in a hospital location. He was brilliant. Just when the director would say, go, he would just snap into his character. But at a break, I was out in the parking lot, and he came out, Sid Caesar, famous actor, director. He said to me, you know, Don, I'm really depressed. And I was like 20 years old, and I'm listening to the story. Long story short, he said he hasn't been acting that much. He was so famous for so long. His wife said, get out of the house. And I started giving him a pep talk and saying, you know, you're so famous and everybody loves you. Long story short, I came back after the break because we used to have a big hiatus in Hollywood. I came back here to Michigan City, and I was in Carwick Plaza at Al's, and there was a life-size statue of Sid Caesar holding a wine bottle. Apparently his wife and myself had convinced him to get out of the house, and he was a spokesperson for Napa Valley Wines. And there he was, a full life-size cutout.
I'll be darned.
I felt so happy about that in Michigan City, okay? Next story I have for the 70s is Clint Eastwood. Everybody knows him.
Yes.
This was one of his girlfriends, Sandra Locke.
And I know that, excuse
Yes,
me
of
for
course.
cutting in, but I know that she has recently passed away
Yeah.
in the last 2 to 3 years or so.
She did. She kind of got blackballed for a while by him. They didn't like each other after they made a few movies,
Okay.
but she went on to be a great director, so I appreciate you bringing that up. He was making a movie called Every Which Way But Loose, and I got cast in it. She was the country western singer. I was one of the 3 background country western singers behind her. Spent a lot of time on the set with Clint Eastwood. He was great. But fast forward to the end of the 70s, my father was a salesman in California, and he had a gallbladder attack in Carmel, California. That's just below San Francisco. Clint Eastwood had just become mayor there, and he had also bought an inn and a restaurant on the ocean. Well, the doctor knew Clint Eastwood, and he said, Clint, Donna's coming, Ray Kavanaugh's daughter. And he said, you know, you were in a movie. She was in a movie with you. So he called me up in my hotel room that night and invited me over to his restaurant for dinner. That was one of the highlights of my life. I got to talk to him for about 2 hours. He was really wonderful. And he made a movie here.
Okay, did he?
Yeah, called The Mule.
Okay.
He actually filmed it down south, but he scoped the territory. It was based on a man from Michigan City, and I was told several people a few years ago saw him at the Waterford Inn and some other places here locally. So we have a connection here with Clint Eastwood as well. And finally, in the early 70s, I was sent by the State Department. I was going to school at Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and I auditioned for a production that sent me to the University of Poznań. For all of you Polish people, there it is. That was in the 70s. I taught and performed, and then now, look what it looks like. Many more buildings, very, very modern.
Big changes.
Because we were sent there to kind of show people who were under communist rule at the time what it was like to be an American and free. And so then I recently got an award, Who's Who of American Women, American Artists, Who's Who in America, for the work that I did in Poland. So for all of you of Polish descent in Michigan City, na zdrowie.
Well, Donna, thank you for stopping by and bringing that. I know there's some great things you've done over the years and the traveling and so forth. And thanks for sharing your moments of the 1970s.
And the connection in Michigan City. Oh, boy. Thank you, Bill.
Be right back.
Hello, I'm here to see the Ohio Players.
I'm here to see the Bay City Rollers. The 2 groups are performing back to back.
Ladies, what are you doing here?
To see the concert. Here's my ticket.
Okay, March 12th, 1975, yeah, but the concert's been canceled.
What?
Yes, been a big garbage strike in the city. So what happened was the garbage workers drove 5 garbage trucks out onto the field, littered it everywhere, and then the concerts had to be canceled. I'm sorry.
I drove 80 miles to see it.
I drove 72.
Hey, you want to go get a soft drink?
Sure, and maybe you can give me the words to Love Roller Coaster.
Okay, but you can give me the words to Saturday Night.
Groovy!
This is Sandra Marcus, the top chauffeur for the Carmichael Limousine Company. She has not received a ticket of any type in 180 trips. That's best since the company began in the 1970s. Customers are pleased to have conversations with her about politics, sports, and more. And she's also received her share of marriage proposals.
If I'm so popular, how come I haven't gotten a raise in 3 years?
Hi, my name is Cindy Taylor, and I'm here to give you some of the highlights of the entertainment industry during the 1970s. The top disco movies from the 70s were Saturday Night Fever, 54, Boogie Nights, Car Wash, Disco Godfather, Skate Town USA, Xanadu, Roller Boogie, Thank God It's Friday, and Love at First Bite. Some of the variety shows that were around during the 70s on primetime were Tom Jones, Bobby Darin, Barbara McNair, Don Knotts, Jim Neighbors, Dean Martin, Flip Wilson, Tony Orlando and Dawn, The Carol Burnett Show, Andy Williams, Sonny and Cher, The Brady Bunch Hour, Van Dyke and Company, The Captain and Tennille, Donnie and Marie, Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, Glenn Campbell, The Hudson Brothers, The Copycats, Hee Haw, and Ed Sullivan. Some of the popular groups during the 70s were Dr. Hook, Blondie, Bay City Rollers, Fifth Dimensions, Gladys Knights and the Pips, ABBA, Styx, The Hollies, Earth, Wind and Fire, Foreigner, Foghat, Chicago, Steely Dan, The Moody Blues, McCartney and Wings, The Doors, Electric Light Orchestra, The Eagles, Bee Gees, Rolling Stones, The Who, The Guess Who, The Osmonds, Jackson 5, The DeFranco Family, Loggins and Messina, and Seals and Croft. Some of the solo artists were Elton John, Ringo Starr, John Lennon, Leo Sayer, Al Green, Wayne Newton, Tom Jones, Roberta Flack, Stevie Wonder, Al Stewart, Olivia Newton-John, Rod Stewart, Lou Rawls, Donna Summer, Debbie Boone, Kenny Rogers, John Denver, Andy Williams, Robert Goulet, and Elvis Presley. The top 10 disco songs from the 70s were Stay Alive by the Bee Gees, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, I Feel Love by Donna Summer, Dancing Queen by ABBA, Disco Inferno by the Tramps, September by Earth, Wind and Fire, Get Lucky by Daft Punk, It's Raining Men by the Weather Girls, Heart of Glass by Blondie, and Born to Be Alive by Patrick Hernandez.
Streaking became a popular event in the 1970s. Michael O'Brien was the first streaker at a major sporting event. On April 20th, 1974, he ran onto the field of a rugby match between England and France. He was captured by a policeman who covered up O'Brien's vital areas with his police helmet. During 1974, streaking reached the thousands worldwide. In America, the most famous streaking event happened at the 1974 Academy Awards. 34-year-old Robert Opel streaked across the stage and gave the peace sign. Actor David Niven was at the podium and he said, quote, "Isn't it fascinating to think that probably the only laugh that man will ever get in his life is by stripping off and showing his shortcomings," end quote. Streaking was also well known on the radio as singer-songwriter Ray Stevens recorded the song The Streak, which was really popular at one time and reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The craze was for catastrophe in the 1970s, at least at the movie theaters. Movie producer Irwin Allen got the ball rolling and others followed in making disaster movies. Something awful would happen and people had to find their way through it. Among the disaster movies from the 70s were The Poseidon Adventure, Earthquake, The Swarm, Airport 75, Airport 77, The Concorde, Airport 79, The Hindenburg, Meteor, Grey Lady Down, The Towering Inferno, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, Skyjacked, SOS Titanic, Juggernaut, Avalanche, Roller Coaster, and the China Syndicate. Disaster films also appeared on television films with the likes of Fire, Flood, and Runaway. On April 25, 1976, the Chicago Cubs were playing the Los Angeles Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. In the bottom of the fourth inning, two individuals ran onto the field. Cubs center fielder Rick Monday suspected something was not right. The two were a man and a boy, and they had an American flag with them and a can of lighter fluid and matches. They intended to burn the American flag. Monday, seeing this, ran up to the pair and snatched the flag out of their hands and ran to the Dodger dugout, handing it to security. Monday became a hero to the over 25,000 people in attendance, as well as both the Dodgers and Cubs. It turned out the man was from Missouri as well as his son. The following year, Monday would be traded to the Dodgers. On the anniversary of the incident, the Dodgers would display it on their big viewing screen.
1970s Indianapolis 500 winners. 1970, Al Unser. 1971, Al Unser. 1972, Mark Donahue. 1973, Gordon Johncock. 1974, Johnny Rutherford. 1975, Bobby Unser. 1976, Johnny Rutherford. 1977, A.J. Foyt. 1978, Al Unser. And 1979, Rick Mears. Switching over to World Series. Excuse me. 1970, Baltimore Orioles over the Cincinnati Reds. 1971, Pittsburgh Pirates over the Baltimore Orioles. 1972, 3 and 4, the Oakland A's, who were owned at that time by LaPorte resident Charlie Finley. And in 1972, they defeated the Cincinnati Reds. 1973, they defeated the New York Mets. And in 1974, they defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers. 1975 had the Cincinnati Reds over the Boston Red Sox in what many feel was the best World Series ever. 1976, Cincinnati repeated with a win over the Yankees. 1977 and 1978, the Yankees beat the Dodgers both years. And in 1979, the Pirates over the Baltimore Orioles. Switching over to the Super Bowl. 1970, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Minnesota Vikings, 23-7. 1971, the Baltimore Colts, 16, the Dallas Cowboys, 13. 1972, the Dallas Cowboys, 24, the Miami Dolphins, 3. 1972, the Miami Dolphins, 14, the Washington Redskins, 7. 1974, the Miami Dolphins, 24, the Minnesota Vikings, 7. 1975, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 16, the Minnesota Vikings, 6. 1976, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 21, the Dallas Cowboys, 17. 1977, the Oakland Raiders, 32, and the Minnesota Vikings, 14. 1978, the Dallas Cowboys, 27, the Denver Broncos, 10. And in 1979, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 35, the Dallas Cowboys, 31. And in the National Basketball Association, excuse me, in 1971, the Milwaukee Bucks in 4 games over the Baltimore Bullets. 1972, the Los Angeles Lakers win 4 games to 1 over the New York Knicks. 1973, the Los Angeles Lakers they lost to the New York Knicks in 5 games, 4 games to 1. 1974, the Boston Celtics, 4 games to the Milwaukee Bucks, 3. 1975, the Golden State Warriors, 4, the Washington Bullets, 0. 1976, the Boston Celtics defeated the Phoenix Suns 4 games to 2. 1977, the Portland Trail Blazers 4 games to 2 over the Philadelphia 76ers. 1978, the Washington Bullets 4 games to 3 over the Seattle Supersonics. And in 1979, the Seattle Supersonics 4 games to 1 over the Washington Bullets. And we don't want to forget, in 1970, the New York Knicks over the Los Angeles Lakers.
There were several music shows for late-night TV viewers in the 1970s. In November of 1972, In Concert debuted on ABC. The show featured the top names of both solo artists as well as groups. The show would play every other week and play until April of 1975. There was no host for the show, but Joshua Wright would do a voiceover for introducing the performers. In Concert won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards. In February of 1973, NBC premiered The Midnight Special. The show had a 1-episode slot in August of 1972, and they decided to take a chance on making it a weekly show. The 90-minute program featured all the top musical performers in the world, many live and some recorded. Wolfman Jack was a frequent host, and from July of 1975 to March of 1976, singer Helen Reddy was the host. As time went by, comics would appear on the show, and so would other actresses and musicians, as they all took turns being the host for the show. The show ran until 1981, and it racked up a total of 450 episodes. A syndicated music show began in September of 1973, Don Kirshner's Rock Concert. Similar to that of the Midnight Special, Kirshner was the host, and there would be both live and recorded musical acts on the show. Performers appeared on the show from around the world. The show ran until 1981 and had 230 episodes that aired. Here's a look at the top movies per each year in the 1970s. 1970, Love Story. 1971, Billy Jack. 1972, Poseidon Adventure. 1973, The Exorcist. 1974, Blazing Saddles. 1975, Jaws. 1976, Rocky. 1977, Star Wars. 1978, Superman. And 1979, Kramer vs. Kramer. That's part 1 of our TV show, A Positive Look Back at the Decade of the 1970s. I want to thank a number of people who helped out on this. Andy Steele, Chanel Sanders, Sue Copeland, John Baines, Cindy Taylor, Jim Arnold, and Donna Cavanaugh. So stay tuned, part 2 will be coming soon.